Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your patience. Today was the perfect day for our Wi-Fi and internet to not work. We tested it late last night, and then this morning it decided it wouldn't wake up. So apologies, that's why we were a little bit late in the programming and a little bit late getting in through the doors. But I promise we will make it up to you by us singing a song. No. So we're talking about investing. It's the boom and the bust of psychedelics. We've got different folks for different strokes involved in all stages of the investing landscape. And I'm going to go from my left to my right. Very brief introduction of who you are and what you do.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Brent Sobel. I founded Legacy Community Housing Corporation, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit out of Orlando. We started doing affordable housing in 2009, and then in the last year we shifted, and we've made a pretty significant investment in the psychedelic space. And we look to do more under the auspices of impact investing.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Doron Junger. I live here in Miami with my wife and 3 kids. And by background, I am a surgeon, and I manage an investment fund that focuses on the biotech industry, and as such, we have made investments in drug development companies that look to advance psychedelic compounds through the FDA approval process and onto the market for wide availability into a number of mental health indications.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Maria Velkova here. Thank you for having me. I'm managing partner of Tabula Rasa Ventures, which is an acceleration fund that focuses on building the future of human health. Most of our work since 2018 has been in the psychedelic space, looking at pre-seed and seed stage companies that are developing drugs, infrastructure, and technology for the psychedelic space and beyond. We also run a nonprofit foundation called Energia, through which we do pretty interesting initiatives. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. First of all, thank you, Richard, for putting on this amazing conference.
I'm taking...
Round of applause for Richard. So much
Yay,
work goes
Richard.
into
it's a bit unfair because I don't do the hardest of work.
We're grateful for the team and for moving
you.
the mission forward. My name is Yitz Klein. I'm the founder of an investment platform called Trippy.vc, and our focus is really vertical. We try to have boots on the ground actually providing inpatient healing. We operate an inpatient facility in Baca in Jerusalem. We operate an outpatient facility out here in Miami. And our goal is really to educate and add credibility through impact investing, chasing an ROI of healing versus profit. We think that'll come, in the longer future. And our focus is really mission-based, and we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Rod.
Hey everyone, my name is Rod Siraj. I'm the founder of Mission Club. We're a global network of angel investors investing in early stage companies in mental health and psychedelics. I'm also the founder and host of Minority Trip Report, podcast spotlighting underrepresented views in psychedelics, mental health, and consciousness. Glad to be here.
We'll start off with you actually, Rod, just because you're holding the mic still, or you were. A lot's changed. If we go back to sort of 2019, when we were both sort of looking at what was going to happen in this space, what's been the most noticeable change, the good and the bad? What have you seen over the last, let's call it 3-4 years?
I mean, the big lesson for me has been, just a constant reminder, this is an evolution, not a revolution. And I think a lot of the hype money has gone away, right? A lot of the public sector companies.
What do you mean by the hype money? What does that mean to you?
I think a lot of irrational exuberance around, where this space is going. A lot of people coming in without adequate resources or expertise. We're also dealing with substances that are still not legal. The legislation may change next year, and we're all hopeful. April to June is what Rick Doblin keeps saying. But a lot of the foundational pieces of what a regulated market needs weren't really there. So there was lots of big money moving in, and these are good signs that things will change. So perhaps that part where a lot of, again, that irrational exuberance, the marketing dollars, they sort of raising money on a deck of like 5 slides and lots of marketing dollars is gone. But what has remained constant is the foundational pieces have been moving. A lot of us who are proponents, advocates are still here, still building gradually. And I think the pieces that are going to be true for psychedelic startups and companies are no different from any other kind of companies, which is build a base, build a sustainably growing company, conserve cash, and so on. That still remains true, and so we're still here.
Thank you. Now, I mean, the title of the panel is Boom, Bust, and Will We Boom Again? I think I created that. It's a terrible title. But really what we're talking about is life cycle. And I think, you know, for those of us, I think we've all got some grey hair. We've all seen, no, maybe not. But, you know, we've all seen cycles. And I think, you know, I don't know if we've got any entrepreneurs in the audience who are out trying to raise money at the moment. And we'll be seeing, you know, what a tough environment it is. But really a question for all of you, because I think we've all got some valuable input here. What's been your reflection in the past? It could be from different sectors. It doesn't have to be from biotech and psychedelics. What do you see with these cycles? How long do they turn to last? And what are you looking for in terms of, let's call it, a recovery of sentiment? What's your view? And pick from any sector you've been involved in. Right, for you.
Pointing the finger at the real estate guy.
And you've seen plenty of cycles.
No, I mean, look, I've seen cycles, and they're very clearly defined. And I guess the only thing I would say is that sometimes you don't know what part of the cycle you're in. It's not always evident. But I think right now is a great time to be buying into psychedelic companies. I mean, we're looking to place $750,000 in the next year into a multitude of different ones because we think they're at a great low. I was just talking to the gentleman here. His company primarily invests in publicly traded psychedelic companies. They are so low right now. But Maria, she's in private psychedelic companies. So there's some difference in valuation there, but I think there's opportunities in both.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the public side of things, they're incredibly undervalued as assets. We're seeing, you know, really quite strong companies trading at below their cash balance sheet, and companies who make significant announcements with regards to their clinical progress. And I sit there thinking, it's going to be a great day today. I'm thinking maybe it'll go up by 14%, and it goes down. And I'm like, how can good news, you know, drive a reduction in the share price? What's your feeling on that? Why do we see that?
Well, I think what you've got to appreciate about investors is that they like to be positively surprised. Merely delivering on news that investors already expect doesn't move a stock up. You made the point that several years ago, a lot of money flowed into the space, which makes perfect sense to me, because when you consider where psychedelic drugs came from a drug development Antarctica, where almost nothing was moving forward for decades and decades, and investors, by and large, had no appreciation that these compounds could ever make it into clinical studies. We got news about several of these compounds, including psilocybin and 5-MeO-DMT and MDMA, that were suddenly moving forward at seemingly breakneck speed.
I mean, more and more, I think what gave a lot of entrepreneurs and scientists the confidence to step into the space was the reoccurring theme of breakthrough therapy status.
That's
being
right.
applied. I was trying to sort of, you know, why was it sort of March, April 2020, the world was going into lockdown, but there was more excitement around this category than I think we'd really ever seen. And more and more innovative, you know, entrepreneurs wanting to operate. And I think putting a pin on it was that confidence that this was, you know, quite possibly something which was going to move forward. What's your view in terms of, you know, the private markets at the moment? What are you seeing, and what do you think would be the, you know, the sort of the white swan, and what's a potential sort of black swan for you?
Yeah, so in 2020, I left big pharma, where I spent a decade before joining the psychedelic space. And my really big first surprise was that there were a lot of drug development companies ran by extremely smart scientists, but by people who had very little experience in launching drugs to market. Now, from my time at Big Pharma, it's extremely important that you have a 6, 7, 8-year lens looking forward, because the decisions that you make today can impact your commercial viability down the line. Now, the space has definitely evolved. We are getting a lot more people with the commercial experience of launching drugs to market, which is great to see. But in Big Pharma, product launches start being planned 4 years in advance. We're kind of catching up with the momentum. However, unlike Big Pharma, classic Big Pharma, these compounds come with a wealth of clinical data from the 50s and 60s, but also anecdotal data. So in a way, the drug development was expedited. We went straight into clinic.
Yeah.
And because of that, the timelines and the dynamics are slightly different. In terms of the private market, we're definitely seeing impact on valuations. Companies are looking to preserve runway. It is much more difficult to fundraise in this climate. But not to just put the lens and spotlight on psychedelics, this is true for all early stage risky assets, including biotech.
Unless you've got the word AI in your business and you're building a foundational large language model, yes.
That's another conversation
That's another
as well.
conversation. Then the well is well and truly open. So, I mean, just you touched on valuations. And there was undoubtedly a moment in time where your starting point was, 20 million pre any money because you had a pitch of a magic mushroom on the front of your deck. What are you seeing now as a sort of a starting point? If any entrepreneur was, a dream team, they've got people with, go-to-market experience, they've got great clinical team, really dynamic leadership. What would you be expecting for them to be going out and raising on a sort of on a seed, pre-seed type basis?
Yeah, totally. And that's another dynamic with the differences between pharma and psychedelics is that this is a nascent market, really a grassroots movement. It's similar to the environmental industry. It started with tree huggers, and now we have an entire space. So thinking about nascent markets and the way that they move with the initial hype curve, because people that are normal people in society started this and pushed for this to actually, for the federal and state government and really for regulators to start looking at this. A lot of the initial early investors that came into the space didn't really understand, and again, I'm speaking from my perspective and experience working in this market, but didn't really understand what the timelines for launching a drug are. So a lot of investors are concerned about that, when am I going to see any returns? And it's a long process.
It was always quite often the wrong question, which would be, when are they going to legalize psychedelics? And you'd say, well, it doesn't quite work like that. It's like this. So there was a lot of sort of crossing of streams.
Yeah, and to your question, with that hype, the valuations went really high. Also, very unlike pharma and drug development, a lot of companies went public very early, pre-phase 2 and maybe sometimes even before phase 1 clinical data was available, which is not natural. And
they had a nice name and a nice logo.
Exactly.
And a lot of promises and a lot of hopes and a lot of dreams.
Yeah, and valuations skyrocketed in the past couple of years. Were skyrocketing because there was a lot of hype, a lot of interest. And when you become a public company, you have to put out constant data. And in drug development, that's kind of dangerous because there's going to be a lot of failures. And that's why most drug development companies don't talk about M&A or even going public until after phase 2 clinical trials are complete. So
I always said to people, you've got to look at it as running two businesses. You've got your clinical business and you've got your stock business. And you're not ready to do either of them at the moment. So, that was the challenge that we saw. Some great points there. Yes, I'm going to pass it over to you. You're involved in this space in a different way, more of an altruistic way. What's been your view as somebody who's been, I guess, a lifetime, advocate of psychedelics?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think
and a pure capitalist before that.
Yeah, exactly. I was involved in venture and private equity for probably 12 or 13 years before I was introduced to psychedelics at all. And once I got involved in psychedelics, my whole mindset and perspective shifted definitely about investment in general, and then for sure about investing in psychedelics. So, you know, I'm the guy, we've taken an approach that's much more focused on education, research, and actually healing people with the compounds that are available to us right now. We understand, of course, we're working with illegal substances, so we're building really, you know, infrastructure around that education of psychedelics as a mode of curative healing, and providing sort of, well, we'll do ketamine IV drips and retreats with breath work and sound therapy. A lot of the public is just, we're in an echo chamber here, let's say. So we're all accustomed to speaking about psychedelics and knowing that it's great and that it actually works, and we've seen so many people heal. But investing in psychedelics from the perspective of ROI on cash has become something that we don't really put our eyes on. We're much more focused on working with people so that these people can go out and educate more people. And again, you know, obviously, even in pharma, it's a really long-term investment. But there are ways to invest in psychedelic therapy now that are actually healing people now, and you know, bringing up the education so really this continues to spread and gain credibility.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass the baton to you, Rad, in terms of, you know, what's your perspectives here?
Perspectives on, sorry?
Well, on the sector as it stands right now.
I mean, it's like I was saying, I think the fundamentals of the space hasn't changed, that there's true promise. There's going to be challenges and pitfalls. I think we have to course correct what our expectations are. I mean, whether you're in psychedelics or big tech or biotech, it doesn't matter. The last 3 years were an anomaly. It's, you know, the zero rate money, free money, like that is gone. You know, and now you could see like, it's going to be high inflation rate environment for a long time now, perhaps for decades. So we have to like throw that out the window. The fundamentals are still the same, which is great promise, people need help. Mental health is devastating populations around the world. Mental disorders, mental health, well-being, people want to live better lives, right? So that hasn't changed. I think the world I come from is a sort of intersection between technology, community, and capital. If you look at how much an SPV cost like a few decades ago, it will cost $200,000 to do an SPV. Now you can do an SPV.
For the audience that don't know what an SPV is.
So special purpose vehicles, basically a legal entity by which you can aggregate dollars and invest in companies. It would cost $200,000 a few decades ago. Now you can do one for $6,000 or $4,000. And so things like AngelList, the game that they've changed in the US particularly is this idea who can be an angel investor. You know, the typical angel investor would have to put in like $150,000 or so. Now, because the SEC is changing definition of what an accredited investor is, Canada's doing the same, this is happening around the world. If you can prove that you're educated, that you have the expertise, that you have the network and the skills, you can become an angel investor. And for existential problems like climate, for mental health, where people, similar to what you guys were saying, you're able to act a little more egalitarian, you're willing to put impact first, this is a great way. And so what we do at Mission Club, we aggregate small and big dollars, including Brent Sobel, who was one of our first champions, and I'm still owe him a great deal for believing in us. You know, we try to invest, find the right companies. Of course, it's high risk, but if you can write smaller checks, that risk becomes basically education. It's coursework. It's basically like going to school, and school doesn't do shit nowadays. So, you know, invest your dollars, learn by doing.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
The panel's boom bust. We came a year ago, and we invested in 6 companies. 2 of them went completely bust. They're gone. One's on life support. This is a high-risk endeavor, in my opinion, no matter what cycle you're in.
Yeah.
And we have a lot more preference now for investing in funds rather than individual companies for that exact reason.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of people who sit outside of the investor landscape who think that everybody who's in this space is here for a quick buck, and it's a get-rich-quick scheme and fast money. And there was undoubtedly, you know, certainly with a lot of these Canadian companies going early, you know, going to public very early, there was a game being played, and I'm sure people made a good amount of money from it. But you know, this is a space where you fundamentally put the capital significantly at risk. And if you're in a biotech public company and they've only got one product and it fails at the very last hurdle, that stock's not going to be worth an awful lot. I mean, you must see, if you've been in biotech more generally, you must have seen those, you've got a dream home run on your hands, and then an announcement comes out which you're obviously not going to know anything about, and you wake up and what's the feeling like?
Well, more drug development projects fail than succeed. That's always been true. The premise that we pursue in our fund is to look for companies that promise to create great patient value, that really make a difference to the quality of life or the longevity of patients who suffer from serious deleterious disease. That, to us, is the surest way of predicting where economic value can also be unlocked. It's not the only way to create economic value. Financial engineering and generic drugs and Me Too products that offer a very slight incremental advantage over what's already approved can also do so, but the strongest correlation to us exists between unlocking economic value and creating value for patients. But biotech is risky, and high-risk investments in a rising rate environment are a toxic combination. Hence, biotech valuations have fallen to the extent that they have, down from their February 2021 peak, some 70% on average, as per the S&P 500 Biotech Index, the XBI. And psychedelics have gotten mixed up in that.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, I think there is a separate and independent dynamic that psychedelic drug development companies are dealing with. Initially, the promise of psychedelic compounds led to the inflow of capital that we saw as it became obvious that the FDA was at least somewhat open and receptive to drug development companies pursuing MDMA and psilocybin, with MAPS and Compass Pathways both receiving breakthrough therapy status. That was really significant. But promise will only get you so far. Ultimately, that promise has to be fulfilled. And the puck has moved on from whether these compounds work, which, by the way, is still a somewhat unanswered question as far as the standard is concerned that the FDA sets for demonstrating efficacy and safety. In this community, we're probably ahead of the thinking in the general public about which psychedelics are safe and efficacious and how they're best used, to the current conversation, which is about two questions. One, can you successfully make these products commercially available to a mass of patients who need these drugs for a variety of mental health conditions? The paradigm is very different from that in which SSRIs are currently prescribed and taken by patients for depression and treatment-resistant depression, to just mention one of the plethora of mental health indications for which psychedelic drugs are being developed. The second key question is, can you do so while running a financially viable business? That depends on the longevity of your patent exclusivity, the price you can charge, how easily drugs can be reimbursed by insurance companies. And the jury is really out on those questions because it's never been done before. MAPS may be the first entity to get there, if and when their MDMA becomes approved for PTSD. Compass Pathways may be not all that far behind, with COMP360 for treatment-resistant depression. But that is what investors are really carefully watching for now.
I think that's, as we sort of close things off, we've got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to just run across the panel. I'll start with what is going to be, that we can be high and euphoric, I guess, on this final bit. What is going to kind of lift all boats? What do you think investors are really waiting for to really sort of get them re-engaged and to get people who are not looking to come into the space just to make a quick buck? What's going to drive and motivate them? Very quickly, we've got about 20 seconds each.
MDMA legalization, April or June next year.
So you think that is going to be the sort of light bulb moment for a lot of people who've sat on the sidelines, MAPS getting market access approval for MDMA?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that as states move into recreational versions of law so that people can themselves investigate how these compounds work, I think that will continue to drive investment in the space and education and more research in the space.
Super. I mean, I'm going to ask myself the question. I tend to agree there's a lot of weight on Rick Doblin's shoulders and his team that, that will be there will be a significant moment alongside Compass and people like Cybin, quietly, behind them. But I think those then will show, in the same way that we saw with breakthrough therapy status being quite regularly applied, I think that will then give people confidence. Same question for you.
Yeah, I think that this space is extremely young. It's still getting shaped up. The M&A that we're seeing within the psychedelic space, but also between psychedelics and big pharma, it's going to continue.
And we have a great panel on that later. For the first time, big pharma is actually talking about what it takes for them to acquire a psychedelics company. So that should be quite interesting.
That's my ex-colleague.
First time we've got him in the room. Thank you. So
definitely check it out, Cody Powers. I definitely have a bullish perspective on the market. It's going to take time. The space is still getting maturing and really falling into place. And looking at big pharma acquisitions that have already been announced and additional interest shown by big pharma, I think this space is definitely here to stay. It just will take time because naturally drug development takes time. And we're not only developing new drugs, we're also shaping up a new care delivery model and a new way of medicine and caring for patients.
Patience is a virtue. 10 seconds, same question for both of you.
Defer to me. Okay, here's my call to action. All of you know a nonprofit, and many of them have endowments. Think of your universities, your hospitals. Ask them to invest those endowments in impact investments like the psychedelic space. I believe that if our space had hundreds of millions of dollars more to invest in longer runways for a lot of these solutions that we're talking about out here, we're going to see more success. So impact investing is a solution.
Thank you.
You're not necessarily going to love my answer, but I think in the medium to short term, it requires staying power.
Yeah.
The next big hurdle is going to be FDA approval for psychedelic compounds for the very first time. That will really establish where the hurdle is and set the standard for every other company coming in the wake of MAPS and Compass pathways. And then the biggest hurdle is establishing that these compounds can be delivered to a large number of patients who are demanding access to these drugs in a way that is commercially feasible and proving that companies can run profitably and viably over the long term while doing so.
Thank you. A lot to show, a lot to go. Thank you very much for my panel. Big round of applause, please.